Hello everyone, I'm starting a daytime interview, which would be with my friend, Danish conductor Maria Badstue. It's her first Instagram interview, as I understand, and now she will join us. Maria.
Hello. Hey.
I'm not sure I can say hi in Danish, although, you know, when I was a fan of Mads Mikkelsen, I was trying to learn a bit of Danish.
Yeah.
But I remember it was difficult.
Yes, it is.
So thank you for joining me, and thank you for talking to us about your career. And after this, the interview would be recorded, so more people would be able to see it.
Welcome.
And you know, as someone who wants to write a book that connects people's general wishes and desires and brain activities with what happens in music, I want to ask, I always ask, what is the force that made you want to become a musician in the first place?
It's hard to tell. For me, I think it's something that just came from inside somehow. It just happened. I don't come from a musical family.
Mm-hmm.
So it just somehow I just saw myself practicing very much. I practiced trumpet. I studied trumpet, and suddenly I also studied in front of the mirror, practicing conducting already when I was 12, 13. I think that's something that comes from inside.
But did you feel did you specifically feel about what is it to you? Why not to become, I don't know, you name it, writer, artist, any traveler, teacher, a chef, whatever, like what's specific about music?
For me, it was the best way to communicate, and I felt more connected to the music. For example, I've never felt connected to painting, for example. Some artists do have this kind of many fields that they work in, like then they writers also. I can write, but not in an artistic level. And for me, music is the thing. I'm not the kind of Renaissance artist that has the many things. For me,
can I ask if when you kind of begin to become professional, are musicians sensitive to other music around, like other genres, music in the street, some noise? Are you becoming sort of fragile when the music is bad and kind of want to shut yourself out from all those noises?
That's actually interesting, because when I was a teenager, when I was not so yet developed as a musician, that didn't annoy me too much. But then immediately when I started it, like studying in conservatory and also professional, of course, then it annoys me very much. So I think at the level when you jump to the level of more professional musician, and even before also, it disturbs me a lot now. To as a background, I'd never have.
So how do you rest from, say, the abundance of sounds? Do you have some, white noise blocking things? You know that some musicians sometimes use.
Yeah, I never have black noise. I have no noise. I just silence. That's enough.
So just basically to recover, you have to be in silence for some time. Well, you have studied a lot yourself, and now you are involved in a program that is the studying program for conductors. So you kind of have been on all possible sides of the conducting situation. You have been an assistant conductor, opera conductor, symphonic conductor, a student of conducting, and a director of a program that now prepares conducting. So I will start with the question, in all that vast experience, have you kind of figured that out for yourself? Why do young people, maybe not so young people, want to become conductors?
That's a really good question, because I have the chance to, and the joy to see many young conductors coming to our program, for example, for the Nordic Masterclass, and also over the years I've seen, and it's actually, conducting is a field that really attracts some fantastic people and some great minds and some really fine souls and some very creative people. But it also sometimes attracts people that likes attention or power or are extremely strange, and that kind of thing. I think it's something in between that the good conductors, what I have experienced, are really interested in the music, and that you can feel immediately. I think from where is the interest, or is it? Many are of course egocentric because we become a little bit egocentric in this path, but it comes purely from music, and you can feel if that's the case or not. But definitely, I feel that.
Can you say from the start that this person has a charisma for conducting and that person doesn't?
It's a little, I think, this thing about when someone walks up in front of other people, you can actually say quite quickly, musicians especially, because they're used to coding body language and presence on the podium. So you can quite quickly say, is there any charisma or not? But it's hard to talk about because it's something. I think it can be developed a little over the years, but basically you have it or not. You have something or not. That is a talent. But yes, of course it can develop, and of course there's a reason why conductors at 70, 80 they really are on the top of their craft, because you have the experience, which also grows the charisma.
But what does the young person can actually bring to musicians? A person without experience, only starting, with only maybe several years of studying behind him or her. Why would an orchestra accept his or her authority on the podium?
That depends on the level, I think, because if it also depends how you work, of course. But if you have a good level, they will accept. Or if you work good with them, they, of course, that's a part of it. But of course, it's. I also enjoy to listen to older conductors, both watching them conduct, but also listen what they say, especially because it's such an experience-based thing to conduct. But of course, young conductors can bring, I think, some youthfulness sometimes, or some new kind of energy, some kind of this fresh thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of you bring different things in different stages of your life in a way.
How would you describe balance? I have talked now to quite a lot of people conducting, and it seems that there is this side which is called technique preparation, studying the scores, and this is a very lonely thing, as everybody tells me. You sit in your room and you read and you research and you prepare, but then what we see is this social side. Yes, the work with an orchestra, being in front of the audience, being a face of the institution, and all this kind of sort of the things that seem to be nice representations of power and so on. So my question is, what is the balance between those two?
Of course, the most of the time you're alone, and that is it's a hard balance. I'm actually searching it still, because in a way, yes, what you say, you see the very extrovert. It looks like extrovert thing from conductors, but basically it is a quite lonely and introvert profession.
So do you have to be, basically, what is better in here, to be an introvert or to be an extrovert? Which qualities you have to develop?
Actually, I remember Jorma Panula. He said, because what is a good conductor, or what is a conductor? And he said that a conductor is it's an introverted person who likes to be in public. So it's actually, and I think I have experienced the very good conductors are mostly introvert. because it's not, you're not standing there because you want to be seen. And sometimes I think maybe people who's not in the music, they don't know that, or they don't see it that way, because it looks like the one in the front is the one who wants attention. And of course you need to be comfortable in the position, but that's not the reason you're there.
Actually, we could joke about it that if a conductor was extrovert, he would turn with his face to the public.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
well, you know, I also was wondering, at some point in the history of music, there were no conductors. Orchestras managed fine without them. So my question to you is, why at some point the conducting person became important, and now we can't actually imagine the conductor disappearing again?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's actually a quite new thing. This thing about conducting. It's not that 100 years back or two. It's not that for that long time we have really practiced the craft. Yeah, basically also today institutions are quite big. Means that that somehow need someone to organize the whole thing. Nowadays it was also smaller orchestras back in the days, so it was maybe more easy to be stegeiger or something. But if stegeiging for 100 people is difficult.
So what you're saying, that you are not only conducting, you're a manager of a group, right?
Yes, yeah, something like this. That, yes.
But can we connect it also to sort of the bigger orchestral things that have been written in the 19th and 20th century, that you can't, like say, the concertmaster can't no longer organize a piece of Mahler or Stravinsky, yeah, because it's just too complex.
Exactly. It was maybe easier with the Wiener Classic period, with the smaller orchestra, smaller, yes, lesser strings and such things. I think that's why we need it nowadays.
Well, so if composers go back to simple music, maybe the conductors wouldn't be needed in the 22nd century. Who knows? But yeah. But I doubt it, of course. Well, I'm just trying to sort of, you know, I was thinking that in my possible book I will also do the kind of put a hypothesis about what music would be like in future. Maybe I will ask this question in the end. So that's why I'm thinking about what will happen next. But let's go to your beginnings also. You have mentors that I know personally myself. So I want to ask about them. Well, the first, most obvious one is Professor Jorma Panula, who is an internationally renowned teacher and conductor who has seen many people graduating from him. And could you describe what is so special about his style of teaching?
Yeah, for me, it's he was very good at he's very good at seeing the person in front of him. Not trying to make you say you have to do this, you have to do like that, or you have to be like that or that. You have to be yourself. You have to. He's encouraging very much what you have, and not trying to impose something on you. And already from that, that's even before even starting to talk about music. It's like, if you get the feeling you have to be yourself, it's enough. Then you don't. That's so important for conductors, to have enough confidence to go there and stand there, and he's very good at that part, the thing. I think that's something that's, because of course he knows all the practical stuff, the score reading, the repertoire, all the psychology around everything. But first of all, he knows how to treat people respectfully and right, I think.
Can we say that he's the founder of the Finnish School of Conducting, as so many Finnish conductors have been working with him and then went to become stars?
Yeah, you could say. I think so. Just a second. So.
I could use it as an advert pause, but I didn't. So, and what has his preparation of lessons changed now that you work with him within the Nordic masterclass, or is he following the same technique that he was using on his students, say 30, 40 years ago?
I wasn't there around 30,
Yes, yeah.
but my impression is clearly that he's doing the same things, more or less. Easy, simple, nothing fancy in a way. It's just like simple, learning the scores, treating each other nicely, creating a nice atmosphere. It's never, I don't feel any kind of competition. It's like encouraging each personality to blossom in a way. And then that's been extremely important for me, that he kind of he's a very creative person.
And he always uses the video, yes, to have a feedback, to discuss what the person was doing.
Yeah, that was very important. I still do it every now and then, checking out my guest stick in the video. And it's important. I think most conductors do that every now and then. I think maybe not everybody, but most do, just checking out, is it okay? Because you can easily develop bad habits. So.
And what about Jukka-Pekka Saraste? You have spent also some time being his student. Well, and he is the student of your panel, so can you talk about him?
Jukka-Pekka was teaching in Oslo when I studied in Oslo in my master's degree. And he was there, I think, 4 times a year or something for a week, and to give master classes. It was when he was in Oslo Philharmonic. And he was very good. He was very different from Jorma in a way. He was very good teacher, demanding. He's very good at the psychological part
psychological, yeah.
in the orchestra. He's an extremely gifted conductor, fantastic gestures. Yeah, I think really profound musicianship. So it's very inspiring just to observe him, but of course also to ask things from scores, because for sure he has done it so many times. He has all the standard repertoire. He has been around, and I still see him sometimes.
Do you like when your teachers talk to you, or do you learn more from observing them work?
Both.
But do you generally, I've been also having this opinion from some that musicians don't like conductors to talk too much. Are you in favor of talking conductors, or do you also prefer when they don't say much?
They don't need to say so much, because you mean on the podium?
Yeah, and in discussions maybe with students.
Yeah, you don't. I don't like too many words to explain one thing. If you need to say 3 words, then some people can use it. Could do it. If you need to say something, you can maybe do it in 3 words, or you could do it in 50 words, where the 47 words were empty, and then the 3 were the important. And that's actually as important outside conducting for me. I don't like too much. Okay, now I'm sitting and talking myself, but this, we don't need to talk too much to make our message come through.
Yeah, that's difficult for me, because as somebody, I actually try to make musicians verbalize the experience, and I have noticed that it's not so easy for some of the people. Yeah,
because I think I actually find it. I don't like so much to speak about music. Yes, the craft, but the music itself, that's also why I think we have difficulties to explain why music is important sometimes, because if you didn't experience it, and I think you can experience it in the hall, but actually the best is to be part of the music, to do it yourself. It's also very nice to experience it, of course, but I like to be part of it. And if you haven't tried that, or haven't had this fantastic experience that it can be this craftful thing music can be, then it's very hard to explain for us who has experienced that. And that's maybe what music struggles a little bit with, because it's not for words, it's emotions with sound in a way.
So what you're saying, that we are sitting in the audience halls are never part fully of the mystery of music?
I think, yes, you can be, but I think sometimes audience who has a fantastic experience, for example, about a concert, I sometimes feel, oh, and then you should have been part of it also.
But if I say had an invisibility cap and sat near the trombones, would I be part of the experience then?
In another way, yes.
Because, you know, I was once at the rehearsal of Mahler 9 with Esa and Philharmonia, and the hall was so big, so I just sat not somewhere in the audience, but sort of near the percussion section. And it was a completely different experience than from just observing it, you know, from somewhere else.
Absolutely, and then you can think about, depends what instrument you play, where you're sitting in the orchestra. Because people, if you play the violin, you always watch the conductor from that side, and the trumpet or oboe from another side, basses from another place. And oh yes, okay, sometimes the orchestra is regrouping a little bit, but mostly they sit in the same positions.
Yeah.
And for me, coming from the back of the orchestra, I played the trumpet, and then going to the middle of the orchestra. It was very different. It's very, very different. And
so now we could hypothesize that every musician has a completely different experience of a concert depending on his or her position, right?
Yes, I would say, yeah. But on the other hand, yes, they have a different, but everybody can feel how was the atmosphere in the concert. But you also, I think, I had a talk yesterday, about this with a friend, because your experience of the concert also depends if you have a big solo and how you felt you delivered it. You're also occupied with yourself.
Yes, you can't concentrate on others because you have to produce your own sound, right?
The musicians, yes, where the conductor has the more broader picture. And I think maybe that's, to come back to your first questions, what attracts young people to conducting. What attracted me was that this thing about not only doing some few notes from the trumpet or being one part of the orchestra with the violin or whatever, but you actually have more music as a conductor because you have the whole. It's not only one voice, but all the voices.
But then the question comes, how come when you were a trumpetist, you concentrated fully on trumpet? How come as a conductor you have this superpowers to observe all instruments at once? Where do these channels in your brain come from that you kind of now can hear everybody?
It's not superpowers, it's training. It's something you also have to train, of course. And you can kind of try to switch in. Okay, you kind of hear everything, but then you can kind of switch into violas or think more about or feel that you're that's also the experience. But the more you conduct, the more you get, you can better control the boat in a way.
So it's kind of training of the flexibility of your brain in a way, yes, sort of to switch the attention quickly. Yes.
Yes, I think so. And I guess it's the same when we play music together. That the more you play, the more attention you can pay. In the first times as a conductor, when you go in front of the orchestra, you're very occupied with yourself and how you beat, and what way to, and now start those, and now stop this, and those things. And then that becomes more and more normal. So it's just something that you do. So it's the next thing is to do all these things at the same time and pay very much attention. For conductors, they are very occupied with themselves in the beginning, obviously, of course. Yeah.
So a conductor has to overcome this self focus to actually focus on others. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, now I want you to talk about your experience with the Philharmonia Orchestra and Esa-Pekka Salonen, who is an extraordinary conductor. What was your role, and what did you learn? What is the specifics of the Philharmonia as an orchestra, and what did you learn about him and his hidden secrets of conducting?
first I met him in Hamburg, actually. And there we agreed I go to Los Angeles with him. And then we agreed I come to Philharmonia. So I actually met 3 different orchestras together with him.
Oh, wow. You even saw him at
Yeah.
with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Philharmonia where I was assisting. And so it was very different orchestras, first of all. Very good orchestras, all of them, but different. Mm-hmm. And Philharmonia is a fantastic orchestra, of course, everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. And what you learn from watching such a machine working so well and so quickly is how he, as a conductor, also works very quickly, I find. Very effective, pragmatic. Both in the rehearsal, how quick it goes, because they play quite well already first time through, very well. So how to develop, what next to build, that is really, to see him working on that level, that goes for the Los Angeles Philharmonic too, of course. And he's very effective with his words, I mean, less words, and he's very effective gesture-wise, I think, very clear to understand, and that's not, it's on a level.
Have you witnessed his preparation process, the one that the orchestra doesn't see? Did he talk to you about the scores and so on?
How to prepare? We did not talk so much about it. I think he's just very quick. That was my impression. But yes, yeah, okay, we talked about he's like, because it looks easy. I remember he said to me, yeah, but I didn't come to it sleeping. It's a way of expressing. It's not like, yes, it looks easy. And he is a very good conductor, because I told him you're a very good conductor. But yeah, I didn't get it sleeping. So he has been working, of course. He's been studying hard, and he has to study hard still, I guess, because he gets new scores all the time. And still, okay, if you're quick and you get better at more and more quick, it still takes a lot of time to study a score. Mm-hmm.
What is the difference? These two orchestras were his Los Angeles Philharmonic and Philharmonia. How does he differ between the orchestras he knows very well, but that are different in everything?
Yeah, you know, when guesting and maybe not knowing the orchestra so well, not being with them many times a year, it's more like you're in and out, 5 days, 4 days, in, out, very different situation.
Yeah, but Los Angeles was his orchestra for 17 years before it.
Yeah.
So how did he treat them? Was it like a meeting of friends, you know, and like?
Yeah, it seemed like, because they known him for so many years, it was clear there was a good feeling around. That was my impression.
How do you maintain the balance? Like, you learn and you are in awe of all these figures. You also were an assistant of Michael Bode, right? In Wien. And then you think, okay, but I'm Maria. What do I bring? How do I not just copy these big figures?
You know, I'm sorry, I'll just take the battery a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I think for copying conductors, yes, of course you can ape the other conductors in a way, but it's not. Yes, you can get ideas regarding gestures, but it's more for rehearsals for me, because gestures are so personal anyways. You look very different from other conductors. I do. And they don't look like each other. So yes, you can maybe see someone, that was maybe an inspiration from Esa-Pekka in a certain way to move. But I think that it's more learning. For me, it's more from the rehearsals. Because you have to develop yourself anyways.
Yeah. So kind of you have to develop your self-confidence, right? So like not to be subjected to others also. Yeah, like sort of I'm inferior than other big stars and so on.
Yes, but I think maybe that's something also with my background from not music family. I'm not so. Of course, I admire Esa-Pekka and many other conductors very much, Jukka-Pekka, but I'm not so afraid of them. It's just work. It's a hard job to be a conductor. So yeah, it's more to see how they approach it. That's inspiring.
Let's talk about your experience in Denmark. If you excuse me, I will read on your biography. You have worked with South Denmark Philharmonic, Odense Symphony, Copenhagen Phil, Royal Danish Opera, Danish Chamber Players. Well, what else? Royal Danish Opera, like everything in Denmark, basically every institution in Denmark. Well, what was well, how they are specific? Could you tell us maybe a bit what's the system of music in Denmark? Is it all well supported by government, flourishing, nice to work in, and so on?
I would say there is no system really, but it's well supported.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense we don't have as strong a school as in Russia, for example,
mm-hmm.
For training of young, unfortunately. But we somehow people manage to become musicians still, and it's of course it's nice because the culture of being together. I know that very much. So of course orchestras are different. But the way of being together, the kind of humor or the atmosphere or the way to treat each other, and the staff also behind the scenes, it's kind of same kind of humor, which is that's nice, of course. So you know the culture, and that's basically, I think, more or less the same as the rest of Scandinavia in many ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your favorite symphonic institution, so that I could ask some questions about it and you?
I can't tell.
Well, just choose what South Denmark Philharmonic or Copenhagen Phil or.
Yeah, but they're very different. But yeah, but I've been a lot with the South Denmark Philharmonic also because I have the masterclass there each year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, my question is then, could you describe to me what happens with you? You start, say, a rehearsal period, a week of rehearsals. How do you prepare? How do you behave? What are your maybe fears when you enter an auditorium? What are the challenges? What are the moments when you feel, okay, I've succeeded this? And so basically kind of your full cycle of rehearsal with an orchestra.
Well, to take first the preparations, that's just the studying at home, knowing the music very well, knowing the score very well, knowing exactly what's happening well, knowing what I want to beat. I don't need to know exactly how I want to, but knowing what direction it goes when if it comes bar changes and all that studying thing. That is one thing. And then you come there, then you have I like to be in my room a little bit before, maybe even 1 hour, actually, because there's always something to take care of, or maybe some questions or something. And yeah, and then you just go. I don't think so much of fear before. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm sweating sometimes, especially before the first rehearsal, because you don't know you never know how is their energy, what happened last week, or was there anything. Sometimes someone has a pension or whatever. Sometimes there's some atmosphere in the orchestra for some reason.
How do you grasp this atmosphere? What are the signs if there's a good atmosphere or bad atmosphere?
But that's kind of like how when you enter any room, you can sense how is the atmosphere, more or less. If you enter a party, you can sense what is the atmosphere. If you enter a conference or whatever. So I think that's kind of the same. You enter a room with a group of people, and then you start, and then I kind of let them play for a little, maybe even 10 minutes before I stop, because then you get a feeling of each other, and they get a feeling also of the repertoire that we can. Who are we? So it's not much more, not speaking too much, but just playing. And then I get a feeling of what is happening, and isn't that there's quite a lot to do as a conductor. You're quite occupied with quite a lot of things, so I don't have so much time to think about myself.
What's your style of input? Do you talk? do you also give brief corrections? What do you do to improve the performance?
You mean during playing?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes if I can, yes, I can speak even while I'm conducting to the string, maybe if they can hear, or it depends a little bit. If it's very loud music, it's impossible. But yes, because it can save time that you can scream piano or something while they play. Yeah, so trying to say shortly and make it fast and quick, and so we don't lose time.
Is there a certain little genius in you, Angel, that tells you, okay, Maria and the orchestra, that's perfect, stop rehearsing, or you never reach that perfection?
I never reached it.
Do you kind of leave basically, say, a small balance of energy for the actual performance? So that's where you produce kind of the best results.
Yeah. So somehow for me, that's how I think now. I talked quite a lot to Jorma about it, because this thing about how much energy to bring on the first rehearsal versus the last rehearsal and concert. And of course, you need to find a little bit extra for the concert. But on the other hand, you need to show what you want to do, how the concert will be. So I think the first rehearsal you put quite a lot, and then you work, and then the concert you put plus even more.
Could you describe now the concert experience, and what did you do if the concert went against your expectations as based on the last rehearsal?
I think that's like playing. Like if you play a concert and you maybe made a mistake, or you maybe didn't feel so well or something, then it also becomes like not every concert can be like you're in heaven. Not even if it is a good performance. It's like sometimes the atmosphere is just there and everybody lifts on the same time, and that of course comes quite a lot from the conductor, but it can also come from the orchestra, that they just go and then we all go. It's kind of a thing that just comes in the moment.
So you can never predict when this flight will happen, right?
Not really, but you can think before you go there. You can think, how do I want to try to make that happen? And that is in your intensity, or in your gestures or making. That is in the small connections with each musician.
Do you think that the audience will be aware of the fact that you had just a normal performance or a wonderful, extraordinary one?
I think they can feel, yes. Because I can feel that myself when I watch a concert. You can feel if they are everybody in the same direction, are everybody on the same page in a way, or not. I think that's quite easy to. So you can feel if the roof is kind of lifting or not.
Well, now we'll ask a question that I think without musical education you can't really fully feel it. But what are the mistakes a conductor can make during the performance?
Yeah, there are quite many. But yeah, first of all, you can beat wrong. Of course, you can beat the wrong direction, but that's rarely. I think that's not so often happening. But of course it happens, or you can forget a cue, or yeah, there's many. The tempo changes. That is the obvious mistakes. Then there are all the ones you have for yourself, the ones that maybe you are training in not moving your feet, or that's on a basic level. Those things, that the habits, if you want to, yeah, maybe you might be training some few things for yourself regarding, like maybe when you play, you want always to have a good sound. That's kind of the same for conductor. You always want to have a good post body standing, maybe.
Do you have to kind of psychologically train yourself against, say, heart rushing and being too overexcited, like with all the emotional side blocking your ability to control everybody?
Can you ask again? Sorry.
Well, I'm asking whether the emotions can overwhelm you to the point that you lose the control of the situation?
No, no, that would bring some good things if you get into it. That sharpens concentration, I think.
So they don't block your brain, but open
Yeah,
it, yes, in a new
yeah,
way. Mm-hmm.
it kind of. So the more intense a performance is, the more you're on the, and that of course has to come from the conductor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what about the opera? It seems that in opera a new level is, well, not it seems, but it is that the new level of difficulty and complexity is added to the symphonic performance because you also have to control the singers on stage.
Yeah.
And how do you cope?
I think that is it's so complex with opera, from my experience, because it's not you don't have a single break. It of course depends which repertoire, but mostly you don't have any break. It's like, because even between movements in symphonies, okay, then you can kind of relax, or you can just be a little off for some seconds. But in opera, in that case, you don't have those breaks, because then you have to think about someone who's changing clothes somewhere, or a door is locking or opening, or someone has to get in, get a light, or all these things. You have to know all these things because you were part of the process with the singers, and know where they walk and what they need to do all the time. That's important, of course, but that means that you are aware of all those things, which makes the machinery much more complex.
How in the opera, because you can't, well, the singers can I don't know, say step in the wrong direction, maybe sing off cue or something. Like, basically, how as a conductor do you try to deal with the challenges that opera brings? How basically can you bring something that went wrong in opera to the good course? Because you are kind of in control, but in a way not, that you are in the pit and they're on stage. And so what are you can't shout also, like, say, like, you're wrong and something.
Yeah, but that's also the thing that's much more exciting with opera, because it can go, it is the singers who are in focus very much of the time, and you can't really do anything when they are when they are in some direction. And it's that I find it very, that's just a part of it. I find it extremely fun, actually.
Do you have to be friends with your colleagues, with singers, musicians, students, teachers? What is this level of friendship and neutrality in a music world?
I think friends with musicians. I have many musicians friends, but when I'm working, I'm not. It's difficult. It's not so easy to be friends with people in that position. That's also the reason why conductors go to their room. It's not because they don't like people. It's just there's so much to think about and concentrate about. So you don't want to speak too much with people. I don't want. But outside of that, if you're not, then it's another case. My friends is more my colleagues, or someone who's not in the orchestras. Maybe singers. I have a lot of singer friends, soloists.
Well, I wanted to talk now about a very extraordinary project, your collaboration with Indian Orchestra, the National Symphony of Mumbai, of India, right? It's called. So how was it started, and what do you bring to them, and what do they give to you?
Actually, it started with the Philharmonia Orchestra in Esapeka, because I was there that week, and then I met some people after the concert who said they were organizing some concerts in India, and I said I would like to go if there should be a chance. I'm adopted from there, so that could. I've never been there before since I was 5 months old, so I would like to come. And they say, yeah, it's difficult because they have a Russian conductor or something. But then that person couldn't come, and they asked me if I wanted to do a production. So I went there for 5 weeks in 2017, and then I was back in 2018, and then I was supposed to go there this year because I got a good relationship with the orchestra, and I suggested, should we make some kind of collaboration? And then I made a speech in Denmark at the Cultural Institute, and then the company then gave me a lot of money to they asked, how would you like to initiate something between Denmark and India or with music? So I gave here to bring 20 Danish musicians and soloists to play together with the orchestra there. So you have that collaboration. And that was, we were supposed to play Beethoven and Beethoven 7 and the Emperor Concerto and Hebrides and some Carl Nielsen and some fantastic repertoire. But unfortunately, the flight was on March 11. So that was exactly when the whole world was not possible to fly.
Can you speak briefly? Is India, what's specific about classical tradition in India? Because they have such a rich tradition of their own music, which is classical Indian music. So how do they integrate the classical Western tradition into their culture?
Classical Western music in India is not very strong. It's they have the Symphony Orchestra of India, which is it's a classical orchestra, and they bring musicians from Europe, I think 4 or 5 months per year, and the rest of the year there's 30 people living in Mumbai and playing and teaching and having chamber orchestra. And then those 4 months per year they fly in people from Europe and we do big programs. So because basically there are so few people in India who plays, I think I'm just thinking, just think about the fact, if we could get just some of those 1 billion people to classical music, it would do a very big difference to the music world if we could start up. But actually the problem there is that there's no one to teach. There's a lot of interest. They have courses in India on how to learn to listen to Western classical music. Then they sit and listen to Brahms symphonies and talk about how to listen to it, because it's not in the radio. You don't hear classical music, our classical music. It's the language is rare for them, so they learn how to listen to it, and not everybody, of course, but people who's interested. So there is a great interest. People want it, but it's just there's no one to learn them. I don't think there's a clarinet in the whole India, clarinetist or something. It's so
do you
crazy.
think that you would have liked to start say a kind of a Nordic masterclass, but for Indian people?
But there wouldn't be people enough to. Yes, 1 billion people, but it's you need to study conducting. You need to be able to read music, and you need to have the interest in conducting, of course. So yes, maybe that could be, I think, but not something that I would do not now, at least.
Well, could you tell me?
I would like to.
So in theory it's possible, but it's hard to organize because there are not enough institutions interested in this, right?
In India, there are not institutions with classical music in that way, in that normal here. So we would need to bring musicians to India to help, to train, to learn people. That's the expensive part of it.
Well, could you tell me if you have something that hasn't been cancelled for the future, and what are concerts that you are looking forward to in Europe and Denmark specifically?
Yeah, just now I look very much forward to Dvorak Symphony No. 9. I didn't do that before with the South Denmark Philharmonic, and I look forward to Così fan tutte also here in Copenhagen with a smaller company of singers and musicians from the opera. And then I'm looking forward even ahead to doing Sacre, also in Denmark.
Wow,
so
congratulations.
That is my that is really.
I saw on the news Kasper Holten posted that the Royal Danish Theatre is open now, right?
Yeah.
Have you been to performances?
It's not open. Yes, it was open, but for only 500 people.
Uh-huh.
I was there, but I saw it online. And it was, it worked well. It worked fine. So I think they were the first one in Europe to open up for concert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It worked very well.
I think I'm losing you a bit, like I hear you with some delay or something, but yeah, it's okay.
Better now.
Well, can I ask you, how do you see, well, the near future of music? Because if you read all this Twitter articles, every institution is asking for help, especially in Britain and in America. They don't plan to open till the end of the year, and everyone is nervous, anxious about the future of music, and when will be the bigger things played, like Wagner operas and Mahler symphonies and so on.
So you ask when I think it will happen?
Yes, yes. What's your vision? Are you positive? Are you anxious?
I think for the Danish and the Scandinavian scene, now we can see the orchestras here are opening up. And everybody here is, every orchestra here is state funded, not fully, but and they got salary. And I'm not so worried about Denmark and Scandinavia. There might be some cuts, and there might be some issues. But I'm more worried about the abroad. I'm worried about the long-term thing of how we have music in our society, how we interact with our audiences, if the audience will come, of course, but also, can we do it in a new way? Is it possible that we come out to more people, that we integrate ourselves better in our local communities? That is, I think that we need that. We needed that even more since 25 years. That is the big challenge for orchestras everywhere, to engage enough, to have enough people valuing it. That's a big task for all of us.
Do you think that this high-flying regime for the stars might be broken with the pandemic? Like, you know, all this moving of orchestras on tours, conductors flying in the jets around the world, big stars of opera also being invited to all parts of the world. Do you think that the system would be destroyed or partly by current situation? Like all the movement.
I really don't know. In a way, I maybe think it. Do we need to go back to that old world where we fly around so much? Is it good for who? But yes, maybe in a way, though, enriching to see some very good conductors always in local area. Of course, that's very inspiring. Also for the, yeah, but if it gets too expensive. Also for this globe-trotting orchestras flying around the globe to play a concert, it just seems hard to get the moment that they would have so much touring again.
Well, do you see any technology now coming in the scene? We had a lot of streams, we had a lot of online stuff. Maybe we would actually like that to continue and bring the VR into it, that we all have now the sets, you know, to be prepared to immerse ourselves in our homes, to make rooms that would have this good binaural sound, that it will be like enough just to sit in your room and watch this specifically prepared productions for home VR streaming of music, instead of going to concerts and expose yourself to the risk of contamination with the virus.
Honestly, I think it's a good thing, all the new things we can find. For example, we had yesterday the Nordic Masterclass, meeting 40 conductors, and I've been meeting conductors for the Taki Fellowship twice a week since the whole COVID. I think many things have happened because COVID-19 came. This thing about teaching for conductors is fantastic. It works very well. It's no problem. We should have done it long before. And I think also I think the content is very good way. I don't see any reason to shut that down. But of course expensive, but I think it's so important to stream much more and be much more present everywhere. I don't see I think we should do much more, at least here in Denmark. But I really don't see the question is how we make it's something long lasting and also economic, how to watch some of those videos if it becomes the experience at the moment, very good supplement to the real. And that
Can you share what these people in the Turkey fellowship have been saying to you? I saw that you are talking to many famous people there.
I think that is confident. I don't.
Well, I'm envious of you sharing these pictures. Well,
Yeah,
what do you get from this program?
yeah, well, here in the lockdown, we get all these conversations with each other. It's very, it's been so important for me to connect with my colleagues from all corners of the world to hear how is it going in Taiwan, how goes in America, how goes in France, how we know all corners of the world because it's all the people who have been involved in Turkey for many years, and then Marin invites guests also to come and speak, giving views on conducting all the profession in general, the industry, what is happening in the industry, both because it's very different to be in America these days than in Denmark, for example. And it's nice to get these to hear how things are because everything is so connected.
Are people positive about restarting working and say in America, in Taiwan, in other countries?
Depends in what way we see it, because if we want to, do we want to get back to how it was? Do we want to have the situation before COVID-19? Was that the perfect situation for me? I'm not sure. Could we improve something? Could there even be something better out of it?
Well, we can't just make a blank state of the previous situation, right? We have to improve. Well, you have to improve, all of you, on what was there, right?
That's one thing, but obviously to improve, you need to have orchestras, and now they closed the Philharmonic and the Met for a year or something. So that's don't have anything, of course. They close, it's hard to improve. So I have very good thoughts, or warm thoughts, sent to America and the UK these days, because that's also we have some of the orchestras and what we admire very, very much. Some very good, fantastic musicians and players and orchestras and everything. So
yeah, and it actually might be difficult for them to reunite after such a long break. Like, imagine if you meet only on January the 6th for the first time after all this.
I'd like to hear that rehearsal.
Yeah. Well, we have 1 minute left because Instagram kind of warns you about the end of the conversation. I want you to, I want to thank you and to greet you from St. Petersburg, where I just sit in my apartment and try to use the technology to connect with all the people, as you said, and hope to continue. And thank you for your insights, and hope to see you at one of your concerts, maybe in Denmark. Actually, I'm planning on coming maybe at some point, because there are many institutions that I want to explore there. And it will be saved on my page. And thank you very much for being part of this interview. And I hope that you and your family are safe and healthy.
Yeah, thank you, and the same to you. Thanks that I could come.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, I'm stopping.